So, Carol, thank you for joining. And I'm curious, how would it be for you to take us back to the beginning of your journey as an autism mama? Maybe back to the darkest moments of your soul, because we all know this is one big birthing canal. And
Right.
and in the beginning, it's almost like becoming a mother. We become a mother, and then we become the autism mother, and then we learn from that in order to let the symptoms go. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and take us back to the beginning? Where are you from? How old are you? What's your life like then and now?
Well, I live in Washington State. So I live on the east side of the state, which is not as rainy as the Seattle side. Everybody thinks Washington, they think Pacific Northwest, they think rain. But I live on the desert side of Washington. So, but I grew up in Seattle. Many years ago, almost 20 years ago, I worked in the school district working predominantly with kids that had been diagnosed with autism. I had a ton of autism training through the school district on just how to manage behaviors. And I worked particularly with a one-on-one with a student and saw huge growth in him. I worked with him predominantly for 3 or 4 years and essentially worked myself out of a job because he didn't need me anymore. But I always wondered if I was being prepared for something later in life. So, because I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that, everything just kind of happens for a reason. So I had all this knowledge about autism, and I had become really good friends with the family. So I saw him outside of school as well. So then I met my husband and we got married. And then we moved out of the area, and I had grown up as a teenager, I was in foster care, which was really where my heart ended up. I really wanted to do foster care. So my husband and I started fostering children. One day we received a call for an emergency placement. They were being pulled from another home. They needed immediate placement, and it was only supposed to be for 2 weeks. They're like, both of the boys have autism. Neither of them are potty trained. They don't eat anything. They scream all the time. And I'm like,
Wow.
sure, I'll take them. So, because it was only supposed to be for 2 weeks. And they were not kidding. They didn't stop screaming. They didn't eat anything. I had to take all of the chips and juice and everything out of our house completely. And they would sit at the table and scream and just say, well, here's a bite. And I just kind of put a bite in. And so we changed their diet quite a bit. My youngest, Shay, he's 10 now. Obviously the 2 weeks became forever. We ended up adopting them, but their mother asked us to. So that was said a lot about where she was at and what she wanted. She wanted them to have the very best, and she couldn't give that to them. And she and I stay in contact now. But Shay immediately started coming around. He was just a little sponge. He was outside naked all the time. He was running in the sun. We lived out on a farm, so we had chickens and big dogs and ducks, and he would run nude through the yard to go get eggs for me, and it was the best thing.
Did you know at this time of your journey that was really important, or was that just something that happened instinctively?
It just happened instinctively. I had no idea I knew that kids needed to be out playing, but not to the extent that he took it. So I just let him. I figured we were out in the middle of nowhere. We weren't in the city. He was happy running nude, and he was potty training at the time. So he was 3. And the language, once it started, was just now it's every sentence starts with, did you know? So he's still quite a sponge, but his brother Cameron is 11. And Cameron has struggled quite a bit more with his autism symptoms. But Cameron also suffers from PTSD because the home that they were emergency pulled from doted on Shay because they're both uber cute, but apparently this foster home had favorites. and favored Shay over Cameron. And Cameron was severely abused in that home. He never suffered abuse from bio parents. Bio parents just didn't know how to parent. But the foster home that they were in prior to us, Cameron was very heavily abused. So he comes with not only his autism symptoms, but he comes with all of this extra pain, and just it's been hard for him. Like, if you move too quickly, and he's gotten so much better, but it used to be that he would move, if you moved too quickly near him, he would duck and cover his head and just drop to the floor and go into the fetal position, which was just heartbreaking. Didn't like water, wouldn't go near the shower, screamed. And that echo reverberating off of bathroom walls is just amplifies it. Eating his own feces. It was just, it was really bad. It was, but we saw growth. But then it just kind of felt like it just kind of stopped. And I was going through my own personal issues, and I was at this point last year, last May, I think, April, May-ish, where I was really struggling with my own stuff, and I was just tired of this constant repeat of things that were going on. And I had been searching. I've been reading self-help books. I've always been an avid reader, so I just started picking up books and searching on the internet. Like, something has to change. And everything I kept reading kept pointing me back to that I needed to start with me. I needed to stop worrying about what my husband was doing. I needed to stop worrying about trying to change his behavior. And I needed to focus on myself. And I had talked to you, I think last May, about it. I was all set to file for divorce. I was like, this isn't working. We weren't meant to be. And I filed. And I took the kids and I went on vacation for a week. And at the end of that week, I was like, what did I do? And I had done your 3-day at that point. And then I was like, no, I got to fix this. And by the grace of God, my husband came home and we agreed to work on it together. And I just started diving in. I did the 5-day challenge with you. And that was like life-changing for me. Like, the inner child meditation, I cried and cried. And I remember asking you, it did. I remember asking you at one point if it was possible to have more than one inner child, because I had so much trauma. And I had so many different things. And so I've been working, most of them, I think I have like 5 different instances that keep coming up. And 3 of those I've kind of resolved, and I feel at peace with those. It's harder with the inner child that's closer to preteen and teen years, just because I'm still working through that. So I see a trauma therapist to help me work through those, in addition to the meditations and all of that. So as I'm working on myself, my husband has come alongside me, and he has on his own picked up some of the same books that I was reading. And now he'll ask me, well, what does Ninka say about this? And he's listened to your meditations. And
amazing.
He's like, okay. Yeah, it's been incredible. It's just been incredible. So
what's happened then? So you went from a child in deep crisis, eating his own feces and being completely in a existential and physiological meltdown, and you working on your stuff. If you're to tie these ends together and try to knit something out of what has happened, what has led up to this, what is going on with your child, and how is this parallel in somehow? What have you taken from this, and where is he at now? Where are you at right now?
Well, I think that, when the boys were placed with us, I think that it was a wake-up call for me to start looking at myself, like, because I just wasn't getting it. I can be pretty thick-headed and stubborn about change, because, you know, you get into that rut of not, you know, and you just keep repeating the same habit. So I think it was definitely a wake-up call that something needed to shift and change. So as I've worked through this with you, I see myself calmer and responding calmer and with less agitation about things. And Cameron has mellowed some. Like this morning is not a good morning, but it's not as bad as it used to be. You know, we're getting closer to the potty training. He's much calmer. Yesterday, he walked around all day trying to make the L sound like this. And he's never tried that before. He's never had reciprocal conversation. It's always an echolalia. It's always repeating back. And a couple of days ago, we had a back and forth conversation. It was very short, one word from him, but it was a back and forth conversation about being nice to Shay. And he's like, okay, fine. Like, you know, because they're brothers. They act like brothers.
Yeah.
But he's wanting to do more. He's not screaming about not having the TV in his room anymore. He's not screaming about not having iPad time every day. He's not screaming about having to go outside and interact with his brother. They go out and they play ball together, or they play soccer, and they wrestle and they jump on the trampoline, which they never did before. He just would push Shay right out of his room and like, go away. I don't want to be near you. So seeing their relationship develop, and then he started to want to snuggle with me, and maybe it's because I'm more approachable, but he's wanting to snuggle, and he's leaning in, and he's 11, and he's all legs and arms right now, but he'll say up, and like a toddler, and so I will pick him up and I will just hold him.
Wow, so beautiful.
Yeah, it's been amazing just to see his growth and his desire to want to build that relationship with me, that I've never seen him this interested in wanting relationship and snuggles. And so I'm hopeful that it will continue to go this, you know, that we'll continue to see growth. And that I keep telling my daughter, she's 21. I keep telling my daughter that our goal is to work him out of this diagnosis, because you know, Shay is this close to not having his diagnosis. He already lost all of his extra care from the state. They were like, he doesn't need it anymore. His IQ's too high, and he can bathe himself now. And so Shay is already losing services. So I'm like, yay.
Yeah, that's a milestone. That is something to celebrate. It is so amazing. How do you mirror? What do you think is going on? Because there's an opening, there's a release of symptoms, there's bonding, there is understanding, and there is resourcefulness in those two children. They're not even your biological children, but they respond to you and your energy. So how does that all match up in your opinion, if you should try and dig into that? What's going on?
I think that as I let go of all of my hurts and hangups, it's allowing them to do the same. It's allowing them to, as I start feeling safe within myself, they're starting to feel safe with me, safer, where they can approach me, where we can bond on a deeper level. And I think that as I let my inner child out to play, they realize that mom's not all rigid and okay, we've got to stick to the routines. It's, oh, mom's having a little fun. Oh, she's dancing again. Oh, great. Which is Shay's, oh, you're dancing again. I'm like, yes, I'm dancing. He doesn't like dancing. But I find myself singing throughout the house.
So where's your place now? Go ahead.
Oh, I find myself singing through the house, and I'll find, I'll hear Shay picking up on it and singing along, or singing in his room. And which is where I'm sitting right now because it was quiet. But I see the parallel between my shift and their shift. I can definitely see where they mirror each other.
And what happened to the divorce papers and your relationship?
Well, we retracted the divorce papers, and I started trauma therapy at that time. And my husband started some therapy on his own, but he's a truck driver, so he's gone a lot, so he's on the road. So he started reading a lot of books, and then we would talk and like have these long conversations, and I felt more connected to him than ever. And then there was a meditation, I think it was the Fire Up the Feminine one, that after that one, and I didn't say anything to my husband after doing it, but make sure the door's closed, but that night I felt more connected to him than ever sexually.
Wow.
Like I've never felt so connected. And I really felt like we were one for the first time ever, like just one soul, one being.
Oh.
And it was the most phenomenal experience. I'm like, okay, I need to do that one again. But yeah, so no, our marriage, we're celebrating 16 years next week.
Oh, I'm so thrilled for you. Can you tell us about the books that you were reading, you and your partner, your husband? What books are you reading?
We were reading The Body Keeps the Score, and It Didn't Start With You, and that's all about trauma imprinting, and then those were the two main ones. I had to take a really long time with The Body Keeps the Score because it kept hitting on these points of just things that I had experienced in adverse childhood experiences, and I have way more than they say is normal. And so I had to really stop and digest it and process it before I could move on. So that one's taken me a little longer to finish, but and then I've read several Christian self-help books as well, like Healing the Soul of a Woman and things like that. But I just ordered the two that you had recommended, and so I'm anxious to get those in the mail about the vagus nerve. And
yes, the vagus nerve one. There's another one that I would recommend to anybody who's listening who are dealing with relationship issues or milestones, and that one is called Is it the Goddess Code? I think it's the Goddess Code by Ellison something. Yeah, and that is the best book on relationships. I will link to it in the show notes so that anyone who wants to dive into that. It's the best thing I have read so far about dynamics. It's even better than John Gray's stuff. And
okay.
There's a couple of really good podcasts with her as well that I'm going to link to for everybody. So what do you feel that you have had to let go of to get to where you are at now, where the dream of turning this around has expanded into so much more than you could expect and hope for? What have you had to let go of? Because there's no development without also really, that's something that I had learned to come to terms with, and it was so hard for me to accept, that we have to let go of as much as we want to take in, as much change. We need to let go of as much safety, security, things that we're really used to, food, lifestyle, habits, people. I mean, I have a whole graveyard of things and foods and stimulants that I had to let go of. So I'm curious, what did you have to let go of to get to this? And what's your best advice to be courageous about letting go?
I let go of more than I expected. I let go of the autism groups. I let go of just people kind of naturally fell away as I started kind of shifting my mindset. I noticed that certain people were just kind of not coming around as often. The biggest thing I think I had to let go of was control.
Yeah.
I had no control as a child about the things that were happening to me. So, I became emancipated when I was 16 and had my first child at 17. And I've always maintained this idea that as long as I'm in control, I don't need help from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I've got it handled. It's going to go my way or no way. And, I've had to let go of it. I've had to let go of this expectation that everything needs to be perfect all the time. People aren't just going to swoop in and take my kids because I was a teen mom. That was a fear that I had, and I had to let go of the control and the fear. And even all these years later, my oldest son he'll be 25 next month. And I had to let go of that. I mean, he's an adult. Nobody's,
Yes.
he's fine. He turned out fine, despite how controlling I was. So it's been a definite shift, and I had to let go of it. I had to let go of expectations of, I just need to let things be.
Yes.
Just let them be. And just kind of go with it. Life's a roller coaster, and we can either sit there screaming or we can enjoy it. And so I've decided that I'm going to enjoy this roller coaster. So
yeah, what I really admire about you is that your humor is really, for the groups, for me, for everybody who's around you, that's such a healing tool for every one of us. It's so inspiring, so motivating. So thank you for bringing that on board, because I think sometimes we do tend to take ourselves really seriously because we are in a war zone, and it is a huge crisis. But being able to laugh at ourselves is really important. And why did you have to let go of the autism groups? Because for me, that was part of it, that whole doom and gloom, the heaviness of the groups, and the attachment to the victim role in those autism mom communities. I had to let go of. What was it for you that made it important for you to let go of those?
because there was more complaining than there was triumph, or sharing things. There was some of that, but there was so much complaining, and I just, why complain if there's something to be done? If there's this new, if there's a way to change it, and it starts with us. They complain about all the protocols, they complain about all the diets, they complain about this, that, or the other, and like, okay, so do something about it. And so I would, I'd share your things. So I knew a lot of these same women followed me on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. And so I would share things as I was learning them from you. And they were just ignored. And I'm like, guys, come on. And I just had to let it go. I'm like, okay, I don't have to, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And
No.
I just wanted to take their heads and shove them in the water. And
yeah,
that's not going to work either. They have to want it themselves.
Yes, exactly.
And so I just had to let it go. I had to just go out of those groups. And then I went through all of the groups on Facebook that I was in. I'm like, nope. And not all of them were autism groups, but even some of the foster care groups, I had to let go of those because it was a lot of the same kind of message. It's like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't have time for this. This kid won't eat that. I'm like, I just couldn't. There was just too much negative. And I just felt like it was just weighing me down. And so I wanted to make room for something else, something positive, something good. And I wanted to manifest something different in my life. So I was like, I need to make space for that, and all this negative needs to go.
So wise, so important. And that can be a lonely place as well, because we need to redefine ourselves. We need to create new friendships, new ways of communicating, new ways of speaking and thinking and dealing with life. So that can be that's why we can get so attached to this title, this identity of being an autism mama, that sometimes I hear moms in the group say, I'm scared of who am I going to be if I'm not someone who's trying to help my child get out of autism. When it actually happens, who am I then? What am I going to do? So that is really challenging. We have to redefine ourselves all the time. So to sum this up, what are the 5 most effective things, tools, actions, go-tos, rituals that you have implemented in your life that's still working, that has had the most transformational effect on you and your children, and has gotten them from A to B. If you were to give those 5 best tips, what would that be for moms who are just starting this journey?
I think the first thing I would do is let go of expectations. Just let go of them, because they don't do anything except set our mind up for failure if we don't meet them, and then we become disappointed. If we get rid of the expectations, then we open up room for possibility. So once you've set that aside, I would say that grounding definitely has been a huge changer for us, for me specifically, with the neuropathy in my feet from chemotherapies.
Oh, you got to tell that story. You got to tell. It's crazy.
I had breast cancer 5 years ago, and I underwent the harshest chemotherapies they were, because I had a type of cancer that didn't respond to hormonal treatments. It wasn't hormonal or genetic or anything. I had no precursors. My doctors actually said it was from stress and environment. So I had the harshest chemotherapies, and then a month of radiation every single day. And as a result, I ended up with peripheral neuropathy, which is, it feels like there's pins and needles in my feet all the time. Like my feet are just waking up after they've fallen asleep, but all the time.
Wow.
And my fingers feel the same way when I'm tired or stressed. So we started grounding last June regularly. And last week, I think it was last week or early this week. Anyway, I was out in the grass with the boys. They were playing. I was walking around the yard with my coffee, and it dawned on me that instead of the pins and needles that I'm accustomed to feeling, I could feel the grass.
Yes.
And I could feel the earth. And normally, because you get so used to a pain that it just becomes normal. And it was shocking to me. I was like, wait, I can feel the grass and it doesn't hurt at all. And then it dawned on me that it had been like that for a couple of days. I just really hadn't tuned into it. So it was really crazy. I mean, I still have the neuropathy a little bit, but I can feel that it's getting better. And my doctor had said that if it hadn't gone away within the first year, that it would be lifelong, that I would always have it. But I can already see that it's going away. And so I'm really excited about that, because I would love to be able to walk on the beach without the sand hurting so badly, because I love the beach.
Oh, that is so amazing. I spoke to a young woman who had MS and had enormous pain and the same things, so numbness, all those things. And doing the grounding and being in the sun every day for a whole season got rid of all the symptoms. And then she went back to the city. So that was in the summer season. She was in a vacation home. She went back into the city. The symptoms came back instantly, because there was no sun, no grounding. So she just knew, okay, I gotta be in nature. So that it is really a powerful tool. So that was number 2, and that's also helped your children. So the grounding, no expectations. What's number 3 for you?
The diet, I think, really helped. Probably out of order, because but the diet, getting rid of gluten and dairy, which is something we had already done. I had already changed our diet to all organic after cancer, because I was like, well, we can't eat this junk anymore. But I mean, every so often we still would, and we still had gluten and we still had dairy, and because who doesn't love half and half in their coffee? But sugar had been a thing, where I was really struggling with. And, I think that that's been one area that we've been really blessed in with the boys transitioning away from gluten and dairy and sugar, is that, well, Cameron, interestingly enough, has never really liked sugar. If you try to hand him a cookie, he'll push it away and he'll go, no.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's one of the few words he had. So he's always been, he's no, I don't want sugar. Even at school, they were surprised. We're trying to give him a candy when he went potty and he didn't want it.
These kids are the craziest on this planet. I love it.
Yeah. So the diet was a big change. It wasn't a big change for them. They were accustomed to eating a certain way and eating mostly healthy anyway. So just eliminating the other stuff was really easy.
Yeah.
But I do see where it's made a difference. I accidentally, we went out to eat, which is something we don't do very often. And I didn't think about a week and a half ago, and I ordered the boys enchiladas, and I didn't think about the shell that the enchilada
Mm.
was wrapped in. And Cameron has had a really rough week and a half,
Yeah.
and it was almost instantaneous. I was like, oh my goodness, there really is something to that.
Yeah.
Shay was just off for a day or two, and then he's right back to his, did you know? But now it's, did you know that gluten makes me crabby? So we were able to have a conversation about it. So like I said, Cameron's still working himself out of it, but so diet would be number 3, I think. Definitely getting
again,
those.
it's the resilience, because he's the nature boy, the naked boy outside.
Yes.
And the more we are in nature, the more resilient we get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why he's bouncing back really quickly. So what's your number 4?
The meditations. And taking that time for myself, the meditation. And what I have found is that when I'm doing meditation, Shay wants to be doing yoga, and he loves, there's a YouTube video, it's Cosmic Kids Yoga. And she does the yoga at a kid level with kid stories while she's doing it. And he loves it. So he does his yoga and I do my meditations, and I just take that time to myself, and I really just immerse myself in it and shut everything else out. And I think it helps me stay centered and helps me on that path of becoming the mom and the woman, not just the mom, but the woman that I aspire to be, outside of the autism diagnosis.
Yes, and there will be moms who would say, well, first of all, I don't have time for meditation, and I cannot see how that can benefit my child. So what would your advice be for a mom who says, that's just not possible because my child is all over the place and I'm so stressed and overwhelmed already, so meditation, forget it? What would you say?
Well, we make time for the things that are important to us. I mean, that's just, going to the gym or reading a book or whatever. We make time for the things that are important to us. This needs to become something that's important to you. For me, I had to start figuring out, okay, where can I fit this in? And for a while, and still some nights, it's still after the boys are tucked in and I have a minute to breathe, and I'm okay, they're both in a safe place, they're in bed. And then I go and I do that for myself. And yeah, it's not in the morning, it's at the end of the day, but I'm still getting it. I'm finding that time to fit it in there, because it is important. And so I think that, meditate. It's 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops, on most of the meditations that you have led us through are less than 30 minutes, less than 20, most of them. So it's really not that much time to make a huge impact on the rest of your day or the next day or the rest of your life. Even 20 minutes a day isn't too much. We all have that.
Yes,
we all have it.
I think the last piece of the puzzle here in this conversation, I think everyone is dying to know, how do I transform my relationship when it's close to the end? And how do I know whether to hold on to my relationship or not? So what did you do to get to an understanding of what's what, and what advice did you have? What tools did you use to reconnect to your partner?
I stopped trying to control him. I took a step back and I stopped trying to change him. And I just said, you know what? He's not my priority. I'm my priority. I don't need to worry about him. I'm not his mom. It's not my job to change him. It's not my job to teach him these things. We're supposed to be partners, not parent-child. So I had to step back and I had to stop focusing on all of his shortcomings And I had to start focusing on my own, and I had to hold that mirror up, and I had to say, you know, what are my shortcomings and how do I fix myself? And as I did that, he started doing the same. And he started
Wow.
on his own. I didn't say anything. He just started doing it on his own. And the first time he apologized without me asking for it, I thought I was just going to faint. I'm like, oh my goodness, because, you know, he didn't grow up like that. And I had to start giving grace. I'm like, wait a minute, we had two completely different upbringings. He has his own trauma imprints that he has to work through, and that affects how he is. And once I started looking at him through the lens through that lens of, you know, he has his own stuff to work through, just like I do, then it felt more like a partnership, and understanding that, you know, we all have our stuff. We all have a background. We all have a past that we don't necessarily want the world to know about. And it affects who we are, and it affects how we respond to things. And I think that when we start allowing ourselves to give grace instead of condemnation, that it opens up our eyes to the people that, you know, to this person that has been brought into our lives. I don't think meeting my husband was a mistake, although I've tried to convince myself of that in the past. I really feel like the biggest shift for us is when I stopped focusing on his behavior and I started focusing on mine. Why am I doing this? Why am I responding this way? Why am I so frustrated right now when he did something that if I did it, I would expect grace? And watching him just come alongside me and support me in this, like, you know what? I see that you're working hard on you. So now I'm going to work hard on me too, because I don't want to lose you in this. And it was just incredible because I didn't actually expect him to. I didn't expect him to come alongside me. And he has. And yes, we've had our hiccups, you know, everybody does. You know, we all have our off day.
Yes.
But I'm so excited for what our future holds, because I feel this connection. I think the meditation, I think I know I mentioned it before, but I think it's the Fire Up the Feminine one that does the release of prior, is that of past relationships. I think that one played a huge key too, because as a teenager, you know, I had been molested by my father. And then I was living on the streets for a while of Seattle as a teenager. Wow. And so there was lots of, I say lots, it's accurate, but survival sex. And then just trying to, you know, and like I said, I was a teen mom. And so there was a lot to let go of. And I hadn't realized that I had been holding on to all of it. And so I think that if we can let go of our past and we can focus on ourselves, and we can realize that our partner also has a past that they're working on letting go of, that they're working through too, that they're just as human as I am, then we can find that connect where, you know, we're on the same playing field. I think that answers your question.
That is amazing. Yeah, and what an accomplishment. I've seen this again and again. We had similar stories about abuse in childhood and being alone a lot of the time, surviving through sex and relationships. But I see again and again that the most challenged people, those who have been through the hardest challenges in life, are also the strongest and the most inspirational. And you certainly prove that to be true. And interestingly enough, you're always the one with the humor and that extra resourcefulness, where seen from the outside, you should be someone who would need that from others. So you're giving so much. So thank you for everything you're giving to everyone who's around you in the community, and for sharing this so openly and vulnerably, because this is not easy to talk about for most people. So I know that this has brought hope and insights and so many good hands-on tools to bring into the life of those who are just starting or going through the same processes as you. So thank you so much, Carol. I'm so honored to know you. Thank you for everything you are giving and everything that you brought to the table in this conversation as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I love this.
Thank you. And see you in the tribe soon again.
Yes. Thank
Have a
you.
good evening. Thank you.
You too.